It is September 26th, 2020. I'm wearing a mask because I was exposed to someone with COVID this week. We are going to harvest some grapes to make some wild grape, wild wine. Got my bucket to harvest. We're shooting for like 1 gallon to 2 gallons of wine. I've got my family here, my dog, and my baby. We're gonna go harvest some wild grapes. I've been eyeing up on public land all year. I'm at the first vines. I'm just picking some, I don't know if you can see those right there. Right there. There's road construction in the background, but just gonna work on picking some of these grapes. Okay, so it did look like some of the grapes have been picked over by animals. Here's what we got from our first stop. Just a little bit covering the bottom. There are choke berries that you got to be careful of. I'll show you what those look like. Sometimes they infiltrate the grapevine. So right here you can see grapes. There's grapes right here. There's this like chokeweed. It looks very similar to grapes, but the berries are more black and they are not edible. So just be careful. It is an invasive species, so it could just be where I'm picking, but just something to think about. All right, guys, now I'm behind the school, which is by my house, and I'm picking more grapes, which are up in these trees, so I brought a ladder. Mask came off because I'm by myself back here outside. One thing that I would do next year differently that I heard online is that like for example, these are back in the shade, and just in general, in order to get the grapes to be bigger and more of them, you got to prune back some of the leaves so that they can get sunshine and air. So keep that in mind if this is something you want to do. Guys, this is a great example of an area that gets a lot of sun. So just pruning back some of these leaves would expose some of the berries more and just allow them to get more sunlight and air. So, all right, guys, excuse my nasty basement. This is the final haul. I'm gonna destem them all later today. Hopefully it goes well. Right, we are destemming the berries. Lainey's eating some blueberries because she thinks those are grapes, but they're not. So there's all our stems so far. Fingers are sticking together. That's a good sign, we think. We've never done this before, so who knows. Lainey, are those good?
Hey Lainey, can you put it in the bucket?
Okay, update time. This was full. We still have about just under half to destem. It is taking a very long time. It's probably been at least 6 hours, but we've been taking little breaks here and there. Pretty messy process, and if you don't like spiders, beware. Okay, so the next step is to crush the grapes.
This is weird. I'm just gonna step on all of them?
Yep.
I don't know if I can do it. I don't know if I can do it.
Does it feel weird?
Yeah. Do you want to do it with me?
I mean, I would put both my feet in.
Yeah. I don't know about this. I'm only thinking of the spiders. If I think of the grapes, it's fine. We're just thinking about spiders.
Don't fall. We're getting ready to dump it into the bucket. So my plan is, I'm usually a home brewer, so I don't really know how long this is supposed to ferment in primary fermentation. We'll do like a week-ish. I'll figure out how long I need to do it, and then we'll go from there. But I'm about to check the pH. pH is supposed to be around 3.2 to 3.5, I think. We'll adjust that if we need to with, all I have is lactic acid, so that's what I'm going to use. And if it's too low, then we'll figure out what we're going to do from there. Add some sugar to raise the gravity if we need to do that. after I take a Brix reading. I'll put this lid on loosely. I have an airlock on there just to block that hole, but we're gonna have that on there loosely so the yeast can get a lot of oxygen and do their thing. Look at those feet. What do you think of mushing them?
Highlighter 2020.
We got just over a gallon and a half of must before straining off the skins and stuff. I should mention that my plan is to do a spontaneous fermentation. So I see a lot of people do Red Star yeast or whatever. The plan is to do a spontaneous fermentation, which is just letting the yeast on the grapes do the fermenting. I wanted to do it with beer for a long time, just catching wild yeast, and I figured might as well do it with these grapes, so we'll see how it goes. Let's check our adjustments. Okay, so we're doing 48.8 ounces of sugar, which is 2.8 pounds, correct?
Yeah.
2.8 pounds, and we're gonna take some of the grape must and dump it in here, and we're gonna just warm it up with the sugar so we don't dilute our wine. We are learning together, people.
Do you want to talk about the pH?
Yeah, the pH was too low, so we had to add water, and that's why we have to add a lot of sugar, is because we wanted to raise the pH to an alkaline, more alkaline level. It's still very acidic, 3.21, which is better than 3.17. I added maybe like, I want to say like quarter of a liter of water, maybe. It was not a large amount of water. Okay, so we had to add some water to raise the alkalinity so that it wasn't so low in pH. Then we had to add some sugar. We added way too much sugar, and our gravity was way too high. It was at like 1.15. So then we had to do a bunch of calculations, add some more water. We added about 3 liters of water, and that brought our gravity to, in homebrewing terms, 1.090, or like 22-ish Brix. So that's where we're at. The pH was at, what'd you say it was at? 3.24?
3.22.
3.22. And this is what we're left with.
And the consistency is much more like one.
Yes, the good news is now we're at almost 3 gallons in fluid / must, so we'll see what we end up with final. It still tastes good. It is slightly watery, but it's not that big of a deal. I look crazy. It's day 3, day 2, day 3, day 2 of fermentation. No noticeable visual fermentation, but it smells definitely like it's fermenting. So I'm going to add 1/4 teaspoon of yeast nutrient. You can get it at a homebrew store. Alright guys, so I'm just getting ready to bottle or put it in the jugs for the next step. My plan is going to be, I learned this from Barley and the Hops TV. He's got a video about making wine. I'm just going to put it in jugs for 48 hours, and then I'm gonna siphon it back into the bucket off all the residual solids, and then I'm going to put it back into the sanitized jugs. So right now I'm just putting it in the jugs for the first time, sanitizing everything. So my process has just been, I'm taking this Pyrex and dumping it through a colander, like so. And then I just take my hands and just kind of work it so that the wine comes out. I don't know if I'm supposed to be splashing it as much into the bucket, if that's bad, but that's just what we're gonna do. I thought about doing it in that big jug over there, that big bin, but my baby's getting unhappy. Alright, it's kind of hard to see because I'm outside, but just over 2 gallons, probably 2 1/4 gallons. I'm thinking if I fill these up to the stem a little bit higher, that we will be right at where we need to be. So that's the next step. Okay, here we go. It looks kind of creepy. Pretty cool. All right, this is the aftermath. Pull this out so you can see. About a gallon and a half worth of seeds and skins left. Looks like there's some juice at the bottom, but I'm not worried because I got both of these filled completely to the top. I don't know if that's good. Shouldn't have too much more fermentation going on. It was at 1.003, so it should be just about done. And the little CO2 that it is going to give off will probably fill up that tiny little bit of headspace and get rid of any oxygen. So I'm pretty happy with that. Alright, so this is the next step. I probably waited too long to do this. It's been about a month since we pressed it into these secondary fermenters. So the goal is to just get it off of the sediment. So this is the first pressings. I'm going to take this and put it into these smaller jugs, which is a 64 ounce growler and a 32 ounce growler. And whatever is left, I've got a large amount of sediment in the second pressings, about up to here. So I'm hoping that between what's left here and the second pressings, I'm just going to blend whatever there is into this 1 gallon jug, and that'll be our second pressings. All right, so we got both of these completely filled to the top. I gotta keep coming back in and putting down these bungs because they're a little wet, so they keep slipping out. But they're completely filled to the top, even like coming out of the stem a little bit, which is good. So that's the first pressings, and then here's the second pressings mixed with the first pressings. There is a little bit of headspace right there, but I'm not too worried about oxidation at that small of an amount. And my goal is to bottle both of these as is in about 2 weeks, and then I'm going to put this one in a small 1 liter oak barrel that I have for about a week to get some oak flavor to it, and then I'll bottle that one separately. All right, everybody, we are getting ready to bottle the wine today. We are just short of 12% alcohol. I just did a reading, and we've got about a pH of 3.55, which hopefully will age well. And the wine tastes great. It's a little bit tart, but I think over time, hopefully that will be better. And it's got a great flavor to it. So I'm currently soaking my oak barrel that I'm gonna do just 1 liter of the wine in a tiny little oak barrel that I got. And we'll see how that turns out, and then the rest I'm just doing straight into the bottle. All right, so I bottled the wine, and my wife bought I didn't even know this was a thing, a cricket. So we made fancy labels and such for the wine. So there it is, Rail Trail Red, bottled on the 27th of November. Wild Bay City grapes, picked by hand, destemmed by hand, foot stomped, naturally fermented, 12% alcohol. These are gifts for my siblings who both got married this year. So they will be enjoyed on their first anniversary. So stay tuned. We'll do a tasting in about a year.